Cyberpunk 2077 is here and it's going to pitch you headfirst into the pitiless urban jungle of Night City. There's immediately a lot to do, a lot to know, and a whole bunch of little icons all over a big map vying for your attention. Once you've gotten over how there's a burrito dispenser within arm's reach of your bed. What a time to be alive. But don't even worry, there's a handful of things worth wrapping your head around early on to make your life as an edge runner better and easier, and we're here to share them. Consider these 7 tips to get you started in Cyberpunk 2077.
One of the most useful skills you can have in an always-on, interconnected cyberpunk dystopia is hacking, or as it's known around Night City, net running. Net running can be used to disable security systems, incapacitate enemy guards, acquire confidential intel, and even make you some extra Eurodollars on the side, so it's a skill that everyone should at least dabble in, as it can make your cyber life considerably easier. Also, free burritos. The way to know if something is hackable is by using your scanner, which you activate using the left bumper. If you scan something that is hackable, you'll be given a list of quick hacks that you can use to manipulate it, such as the quick hack shown here, which lets you disable security cameras.
Going down.
Each quick hack you use has a cost in the form of RAM, and the amount of RAM you have is limited by what is known as your cyber deck, which can be upgraded at the various Ripper docks around the city.
Got a Militech Paraline. Think it'll do.
Solid gear. For a beginner.
Upgraded cyberdecks give you more RAM slots, which allow you to do more and costlier quick hacks, so getting your hands on one of these should be a priority. The Tetratronic Mark II, for example, does give you 6 base RAM to play with, but costs 15,000 eddies, a not insignificant sum early on, so better start saving. Arguably the most important quick hack, however, is the one known as Breach Protocol, which, if successful, lets you manipulate everything on a specific network. The only catch is you have to actually put some effort into these hacks in the form of a timed minigame. It can be somewhat confusing at first sight, but the Breach Protocol is actually fairly simple. The grid on screen is split into rows and columns, and you need to enter the sequence shown on the right of the screen for a successful hack. At first, the top row is highlighted, which means you can only select from that row. Next, the column you selected your first pair of characters from will be highlighted, so you can only select from that column. And then it's back to the row you selected from for the next input. The further in the sequence you manage to get without running out of options, the more benefits you'll get from the hack, so it's worth planning out your route through the grid ahead of time before the timer starts ticking down. Also, the buffer section at the top shows you how many characters you can enter before you're done, so you might need to plan strategically if you want a specific outcome. I'm in. Do hackers still say that in 2077? I mean, probably. You don't mess with the classics.
If there's one thing we've learned about the human experience here in the cyberpunk future, it's that life is cheap, but living is bloody expensive.
Always wondered what it'd feel like to spend a ludicrous amount of eddies on threads.
You are going to need stacks of Eurodollars to maintain your lifestyle, between shelling out for pricey weapons, cars and cybernetic upgrades, and keeping yourself in ruggedized booty jorts. They don't grow on trees, you know.
Doing it on the jorts.
On your body.
Wow,
Yeah!
And also being
ready
shirtless.
to party.
To that end, you want to keep the dirty money rolling in as you make your way through the game. Lucky for you, there are a bunch of ways to get your grind on in Night City. Don't overlook the side jobs, for instance, which you don't need us to tell you are literally everywhere, because people won't stop blowing up your phone to tell you about them.
You don't know me, but you will. Name's Dino. Deal with downtown, city center.
Not all of these side missions are big earners, but plenty are. For instance, may we recommend the job that begins a few hours into the game when a rogue driverless taxi plows into your ride. Rude. In addition to calling into question the safety of self-driven luxury cars, this incident kicks off a questline that earns you a chunky finder's fee for each subsequent robotaxi you track down. The various other side activities known as gigs and hustles are moderately lucrative but also less time intensive to keep your bank balance ticking over from big score to big score. Consider the NCPD reported crimes, for example, which appear on your map as question marks in a blue box if you need some walking around money and feel like freelancing for the fuzz. The most important habit of a financially successful post-human gun for hire, however, is hoovering up every scrap of loot and junk in your vicinity, like some kind of beweaponed Roomba.
Grab the gear. Button control shot. Quick.
Obviously, you're going to loot all the stuff off your fallen enemies, but beyond that, you'll want to scan your surroundings on the regs to reveal items and containers of items you otherwise would have missed. No one even gets mad if you steal what must surely be their stuff, so feel free to take whatever isn't nailed down. Yes, a lot of it will be low-value rubbish and for some reason sex toys, but occasionally you'll pick up an item worth hundreds of credits. Take your backpack full of trash and treasures to one of the drop points, which appear on your map as boxes with arrows on, and you can convert it all into the money you crave. Finally, in financial advice, don't blow your meagre savings on booty jorts. I can't believe I have to tell you this, people. It's basic budgeting.
Oh, there it is. Wow.
Regardless of whether you're playing as a stealthy netrunner or a jacked-up tank with swords for arms, one thing you'll be doing a lot of in Cyberpunk 2077 is talking to people, which is why it pays to understand exactly how the conversation system works.
What you blowing?
Escape. Pure as baby powder.
Generally, when talking to people, your conversation options will come in one of two different colours. Yellow will move the conversation forward towards its conclusion, while blue options will give you more detail or background around the situation or the person you're talking to. Occasionally, however, you'll see extra options pop up during conversations that have a little icon next to them. Unlike some RPGs, there isn't a dedicated speech skill in Cyberpunk. Rather, these options are based around your different attributes as seen in the game's character screen: body, reflexes, technical ability, intelligence, and cool. To choose these conversation options, you'll need to be a certain level in the displayed attribute, otherwise you'll just see an indicator letting you know just how far you're falling short of the requirement. If you just see the icon, you're a high enough level and can chat knowledgeably about, in this example, impressive sounding technology.
Sensory SIG amps, acoustic and emotive wave monitors. Top shelf hardware.
Sometimes too, you'll get a conversation option tied to your choice of life path. Street kids are up on the latest rumours, for example, while nomads have a perspective on life outside the city.
Some of the Nomad clan's biggest jobs are scored right here.
Don't surprise me. Ain't no better place than Night City to land a gig.
I know, right? There's an outside the city. Who knew?
We understand the urge to spend your stat points in an RPG as soon as you get them. You don't want to be going into a potentially dangerous situation under-leveled.
I don't see any brick around here, do you?
Also, more importantly, you really need to clear those nagging reminders on the character menu. Not to sound like your fiscally prudent cyber dad, but in Cyberpunk 2077 you should hold off on spending all your points right away. Obviously, the usual RPG rules apply. If you save up some of your points, you might be able to spend them to get past a physical obstacle or a sticky combat situation.
They'll come after you.
What you might not realise is that you really can spend points whenever you need them, even in the middle of a conversation. Unavailable choices that appear greyed out show your current level and how many more points you'd need to spend to unlock them, so you're always fully aware of whether these options are within reach or not.
Need to find out who she was working for.
These choices can have a huge impact on the way a mission plays out too, allowing you to, for example, skip a later boss fight entirely by knocking out a gang leader.
Caught me a rat! You're dead!
Oh, and your choice of life path at the beginning of the game has no effect on your ability to spend your points and spec out a character however you like, so don't sweat your choice of life path too much. Just pick the backstory that fits with your whole deal, like how I picked the one that is all about being a Mad Max and blasting around the Badlands in a rally car. I'm not saying the other two life path choices are garbage, but I'm not saying that.
For all the great achievements in the field of body augmentation by the year 2077, such as permanently grafting a Cyclops visor onto your skull, the technology does not yet exist to let you carry infinite weight. Pick up too much loot and junk and you'll find yourself over-encumbered, groaning under the weight of smart guns and marital aids. Until those Ripper dogs get their act together and invent us a pair of legs with infinity strength and cargo pants with infinity pockets, we're just gonna have to do some inventory management. It's fine though, because for one, you already know about selling all the unwanted trash you've harvested from the streets of Night City to the omnipresent drop points. For two, you can break down the weapons you don't want to hang on to, saving you space and netting you useful crafting components which you do want for upgrading your gear and crafting your own stuff. Three, you can offload extra items you're carrying but don't need immediately to a secondary inventory, namely the stash in your apartment, where V has aspirationally commissioned and installed custom weapon mounts for all the weapons they one day hope to own. Aww. And better yet, you don't have to go all the way home to reach your apartment stash. You can access the stash through the trunk of your vehicle, via the portable wormhole those clever scientists presumably invent between now and 2077. Amazing progress. All I've got in my trunk is an old road atlas and one jumper cable.
It can be easy to forget that Cyberpunk 2077 is a deep systems-based role-playing game, because you spend precisely 0 time hitting goblins with a sword and quite a lot of time doing this. Could have really done with an assault rifle in The Witcher 3, if I'm honest. When you're in the thick of combat, it can be easy to slip into playing Cyberpunk 2077 exactly like a first-person shooter, rushing between cover and, if you get into trouble, mashing the up button on the D-pad to huff a health inhaler. As an asthmatic, I've never felt more badass. If you're playing like this though, you're missing out on an RPG-specific feature that can be a major help in tough combat situations. At any point in a firefight, you can enter your inventory and all those nasty enemies will wait patiently until you've finished rooting around in your rucksack. That means if your current loadout of 3 weapons isn't doing the job, you can swap for something else in your wider collection that might turn the tide. Of course, the RPG elements of Cyberpunk 2077's combat giveth, and they also taketh away. Because all weapon damage is calculated based on RPG stats rather than just old-fashioned ballistics, even the sweetest headshots aren't always, or even often, going to stop people dead. Must be all that cybernetic metal they have in their skulls.
Night City is absolutely massive, and while you may well have an impressive pair of robot legs with linear actuators and a Kevlar weave, actually walking from place to place is going to take so long, it'll be Cyberpunk 2087 by the time you arrive. That's why it's important to remember that you have other options available to you for getting around. The fast travel system in Cyberpunk is not quite as user-friendly as those seen in other games, but, like the one seen in the Witcher series, requires you to travel to specific points on the map to use these interconnected fast travel kiosks. Luckily, these kiosks are pretty numerous and you can spot them easily on the map by their bright blue icons. Or I mean you could, if the map weren't so crammed with other icons. Luckily, pressing left on the D-pad lets you filter just for fast travel points, so you can know exactly where you're heading for to quickly get around town. If you'd rather see the sights, don't forget that you do have a car in the game and you can call it to you at almost any time by pressing right on the D-pad, just like you're whistling for Roach in The Witcher. This thing also handles like a horse, which means it's probably time to upgrade.
Those were 7 tips to give you the edge as you get going in Cyberpunk 2077. Tell us your own secret to survival in the comments below, because sharing is caring, even in the neon dystopia of Night City. And then for more Cyberpunk 2077 from Outside Xbox, subscribe and hit that bell icon to get notifications. Thanks for watching.